Hi, it's Rose here and welcome to episode 4 of Building a Home Recording Studio from scratch. Up until now I've been able to learn how to set up my own home recording studio and lay down a vocal to a backing track as well. I've now decided I'd like to chat to some other singer-songwriters to see how they use music technology to benefit their work. So I'm lucky enough today to be speaking to Sam Brown to see how she uses her home studio and what her experiences have been. Hi Sam.
Hello Rose.
Thank you very much for talking to us today.
It's a pleasure.
So first of all, can you just explain to everyone a bit about you and what you've done in your career so far? In a nutshell,
I started singing when I was 12 and I stopped singing at the end of 2006 because I had a problem with my voice. And up to that time I wrote my own songs, had a hit in 1988 with Stop. Before that I sang backing vocals with The Small Faces, Spandau Ballet, Adam and the Ants, lots of different people. I was a session backing vocalist. And then I promoted Stop for a few years and then I sang with Pink Floyd just for a year on the Pulse tour, and I worked with Jules Holland on and off for about 15 years, up till 2006. So that's a very brief kind of
overview.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So,
I forgot to say, I write songs as well.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So you keep doing that now. Yeah. Great. So I was going to ask you then, if you remember when you first decided that you might need to start using music technology as part of your job and what it was that kind of prompted you to do that.
Yes, well, of course, when I first started, there was no such thing as a computer, so or it was a great big thing in Doctor Who with loads of big knobs on it. So I suppose we kind of switched from using analogue to, I was recording albums and demos for songs.
Yeah.
I suppose the first album I did for my own solo project was 1995, 1996.
Okay.
Obviously, we'd used computers in the studio before that. I used to work with my brother a lot, so we co-produce everything together. So I knew a bit about engineering to start with, although I was kind of typical female singer. I was kind of like, you do that bit. I sort of don't really want to know about that. I'll just get up and sing. But when I moved down from Scotland, when I lived in Scotland, we had our own recording studio, which had both analogue and digital and the computer and Pro Tools, sorry.
Right, okay.
And I decided when I moved down that I wanted to set myself up with Pro Tools at home.
Okay.
So I had a very small setup, a little Digio box, and had to buy myself a Mac, obviously. Yeah. Expensive.
Yeah.
And just started then, really. Yeah. So about 1995, that was when I first started to use Pro Tools on my own at home.
Okay. And how did you find that process? Like, did you do it all by yourself? Did you get help, or
my brother helped me a lot. My brother helped me a lot. He advised me on what to buy. Right. So he worked out what sort of computer I needed, and the extra audio equipment, the Digio box, and I put everything onto an external hard drive so I can use a computer for other things as well.
Okay, cool. What is a Digio box? I've got no idea.
It's an interface.
Okay. Yeah.
So you go through the Digio box into your computer. So that provides you with preamps for audio that you're recording, and connects. You can tell I'm a layman, can't you? I'm not very good at this sort of thing. But it's about that big. Right, okay. And it's silver.
Okay. But it's kind of, I've talked a bit about interfaces. It kind of does the same job as an interface.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Okay, cool. So we've sort of talked about sort of the technically side of things. What would you say to people that aren't very technical if they were sort of thinking about doing something like this?
I think once you actually get set up, it's just a question of using a different software program like you would learn to use Photoshop.
Okay.
So it's just about learning something new on the computer. I think most people now are fairly computer literate. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah. It's Pro Tools I found really, really easy to use, and also I switched from PC to Mac, and again I found the Mac really easy to use in conjunction with Pro Tools. Okay. So once you've got the initial setup, there's not too much plugging in to do. Right. So basically the Digio box has a mains lead, so a kettle lead.
Yeah.
It has leads to the speakers, which my speakers are self-powered, so I don't need an amplifier.
Right.
They're Genelex.
Very nice, yeah.
And then you have a digital lead, which goes from the Digio box into your computer.
Right, okay.
Okay, so that's that. So that's a Digio box. The next thing you need is you need your hard drive, external hard drive.
Yeah.
So all my music goes onto my external hard drive.
Yeah.
So it doesn't get carted about everywhere and doesn't get interfered with by accident.
Right.
That has a mains lead and a lead going from the hard drive into the computer. What else? I'm looking at my studio setup over there. So then you have to have a stick that goes into the side of the computer.
Oh yeah, like a
USB type drive. Yeah. And that's
Memory
got
stick,
some of the Pro Tools information on it.
Okay.
So I have an extra long keyboard, so you have a numeric pad as well as your normal keypad.
Yeah.
Because basically you use those numbers for controls.
Oh yeah, okay.
With the Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you've touched on that you use Pro Tools as your software then.
Yeah.
Did you find that, I mean, you were sort of using that before you did your own home studio, is that right? Or did you?
I'd used it in
not use
studios, yeah. I'd seen how to use it in studios.
Right, so you'd already been taught that a little bit. And was it your brother that helped you sort of
He
navigate
did,
your way around that?
did. But to be honest with you, he did help me. But there's only one way to learn, and that's by actually going through the process.
Yeah, sure.
And I think, for me, it just was trial and error, and having my brother as an 0800 number on my phone. Help, what have I done? I don't know what I've done.
Yeah.
But it didn't take too long, to be honest with you, to get to know. It's fairly straightforward.
Okay, cool, brilliant. So I was going to ask about when you're creating demos and having to send things to like publishers or whoever it may be, management. What sort of standard do you tend to work towards when you're recording? Do that have to be a basic idea, or is it actually quite polished when you send them off?
Well, I think because of my background in studios and production, I wouldn't send anything out that technically was distorted or messy. The compression wasn't right. You could hear drop-ins. So that's just basic kind of good housekeeping in the studio.
Totally, yeah.
I think it's important to keep it clean sounding. And it's difficult really because if you're doing it for yourself, so if you're a singer-songwriter as I was, the demos don't have to be brilliant because you're not selling them to anybody else.
Yeah, of course.
But I think if you're writing for somebody, I would say it's really quite important to spend time getting a really nice sounding demo. It's almost like when you're selling your house, everything's just got to be neat and tidy and clean so people can see what it is, kind of thing. I think if
see its potential,
I suppose. So if it's too stylised, that might put people off. But I do think you need quite a posh demo if you're sending it out for other people.
So you need to get your skill level up to a certain point if you're doing that kind of thing.
I think the days of just stick a guitar and vocal thing down on your phone and send that to someone, I think they're gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. So, well, that leads us quite nicely on to the next question, actually. Yeah, you've done this before, haven't you?
No. I don't know what you're talking about.
So I was going to ask if having these kinds of skills, if you think it's going to become a necessity really for writers and session singers in future.
Well, I think it's a really useful writing tool. I mean, as a songwriter, I would always have a 4-track at home because it's important to be able to listen to what you've done.
Of course,
And of course, in the old days, you weren't able to just do it on your phone. You had to have some form of recording it.
Of course,
So I think I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's really good to have the facility. And I think that nowadays, with social media, people are doing more and more of everything themselves.
Completely,
And whilst I think it's important to focus on actually what you're good at rather than just try and do everything. Equally, it's quite good to be able to record it. But it's a difficult question because my son's a singer-songwriter and he's quite capable of doing all Pro Tools, but he can't switch his mind. It takes away the creativity quite often. So I think there's a process. So you would write a song, you would just record it on your phone or on a tiny little recording thing, and then maybe take it the next stage further and do it. But recording is a very detached process. You need to not be emotional about it.
Yeah.
And that's quite difficult to do as a songwriter sometimes.
Completely, yeah, exactly. You have to put a different head on your shoulders.
Yes.
Yeah. No, definitely. So have you ever used, is that, would you say your main motive and focus of when you ever use it is on a songwriting basis? Have you ever used it being a session singer, for example, or
yes, I
for
do.
other things
I
that you do?
I use it for voiceovers.
Right.
So I'm able to have people send me a script for a voiceover.
Yeah.
I record it here. I do everything here. I edit it. I compress it, and I send it off as files.
Right.
So that's really, really useful.
Great.
And it's got me quite a lot of work. So that is
cool.
quite good. I suppose it depends how good you are at engineering and producing.
Yeah.
Because if it takes up too much time, then it's interfering with the process, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And really the most important part's the music.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Do you do any teaching? Like, would you use it, do you think, if you were teaching?
Yeah, I use it with teaching. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you're teaching singing or any music, actually, I used to sort of coach singer-songwriters.
Right.
Quite often people have never heard themselves recorded before, and when they hear themselves, they completely freak out and they're like, "Oh my God, I sound awful," you know. And of course they don't. They just sound like them, but they're not used to hearing it. And
definitely.
when people listen to themselves, I think they make adjustments. So if you record somebody doing something, no matter how good or bad it is, you play it to them, they freak out, they might have a little cry, and then you say, "Okay, well look, let's just take it a bit at a time." And then they really focus in on it, because when you hear it, it gives you a completely different perspective.
Yeah, it's really useful, isn't it, for that, for them to hear themselves. Great. Okay, so aside from that, do you have any sort of top tips you'd give to everybody? 2 or 3 maybe?
What do you mean with regards to recording and singing and session work?
Well, all of it really.
I think
using technology to help you, kind of thing.
I think it's a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
If you can. I think if you can't and you find it too difficult and you've tried, I don't think there's any shame at all in going, "Do you know what? I can't do that. And I'm not going to go near it because I can't do it well."
Yeah.
You don't have to be able to do it brilliantly, but you need to have some sort of skill in it. You need to be able to. Some people have an aptitude for it and some people don't. I think that's the thing. So I would say if you can do it because it's really useful. And if you can't, don't worry too much, but find a friend who can.
Yeah, so just ask for help basically is always good.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks a lot for talking to us today.
It's a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. So it was really great to speak to Sam today and see how she puts into practice some of the things that we've learnt so far. I hope you gained some useful insights too, and next time I will be back at home learning how to record some live instruments as well as record some more vocals. So I look forward to seeing you then.